Group, which is a consulting firm, and the co-author of Profit from the Positive, the best-selling book with Senya Maiman. And with me today is Mia Chernick, who is an associate of the Greenberg Group. And Mia is also in a learning and development professional for the world's largest hotel chain, where she trains over 1,800 employees and leaders at her company. And prior to joining the Greenberg Group and the hotel chain, she was also an HR business partner for a hotel chain, where she also learned about operations and consulting with leaders in the company. So Mia, welcome. I'm delighted to be co-facilitating with you today. And before we get started, I would just like to start with a centering exercise, which is something that we always do when we do any kind of webinar. And you might be familiar with this notion of absent presence, where we are physically present, and in this case, virtually present, but we are mentally absent. And that's why we ask all of you to turn on your video, because you know how tempting it is when you're on webinars or conference calls to just, put your computer on mute and, start doing email or something else. So let's start with just a centering exercise where you can close your eyes if you'd like. Make sure your feet are firmly planted on the floor. And I'd like you to start by just focusing your awareness on your breath, breathing in and breathing out. And I'm going to introduce you to something called the 4-7-8 as a centering exercise. You breathe in on 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold it for 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then slowly release it on 8. Okay? And let's practice it right now. Let's do a couple of these silently to ourselves, and then we'll start the webinar. Okay. And with that, Mia, I'm going to turn it over to you to lead us through the productive leader. It's more than time management.
Great. Thank you so much, Margaret. And good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from. I'm here in sunny California, so it's a beautiful morning here. And Margaret, thank you for inviting me to co-lead with you today to talk about our productivity in this unique environment, and the fact that it really is more than time management. So when you asked me to co-lead with you today, I thought about what is something that we can all really use at this time. And I think it's a little nudge to shake up or rethink the way we go about tackling our tasks every day, whether that's personal or professional. Now, I want you to think to yourself, why now? Why does this matter now? And you may be thinking more so than ever, regardless of if you're working more or less, there's more on your plate. You're in a new environment. You're at home. You might have new colleagues, those pets and kids and spouses. You have more distractions, right? And that plays into our productivity every day. So more now so than ever, we really need to focus on what is most important and how we go about getting those things done on a day-to-day basis. So there are 3 tools that I'm going to introduce and we're going to work on applying today. First, we'll talk about working on the right work. So what really matters and how do we discern what those items are? Second, we'll talk about going from a hot mess, which I know we all have been there, and some of you are probably there right now. I know I have been, to being cool and decluttered and the impact that has on our productivity. And lastly, we'll talk about the importance of setting habits, not just goals. So first, working on the right work. I'm going to turn this to you all and ask you to go to your chat box, which we've become familiar with already this morning and afternoon. And I'd love to hear today, how do you prioritize your tasks?
While we wait for those to come in, Mia, I'll just say that, some people use the ABC method. Some people use the, whoever the paying client or the boss or the most important person is. So there's all kinds of ways that we prioritize. Let's see what we have coming in. Okay, Melissa Ginter. Hello, Melissa. Upcoming deadlines is how she prioritizes. KT, I do what I feel like doing, interspersed with what I have to do. Love that.
Me too.
Okay, yeah. Lewis, writing them down and then ranking them 1, 2, 3 or ABC. Deadline based for Marissa. Deadlines. Lisa, make lists and then number them in order of importance. Okay. I wonder how many people we have on this webinar today who actually write things down on their to-do list that they've already accomplished just for that joy of crossing them off. And Mia, are you and I the only ones that do that?
I would guess not.
Okay, and Ashima, noticing how the kids are feeling around me, what the day demands, and then reprioritizing my day at the beginning of the day as best I can. Yeah, beginning of the day and end of day are great tools to do. And Mari says, I'm still working full-time from home, so basically I'm still using the tools we have, we use at work, spreadsheets, etc. And Betsy, again, deadline driven. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Awesome.
We've got a nice mix here.
We sure do, and thanks for submitting your responses there. As we can see and as we know, there's not a one-size-fits-all, right? We all go about prioritizing differently, and that's okay. But there is a principle that I want to share today, and I hope that we can apply. There's research and science behind Eisenhower's urgent and important principle and how it can help us to focus on our priorities and boost our productivity. So I'd love to know, as I go about discussing this, who's familiar with Eisenhower's urgent and important principle. Just drop me a yes or no in the chat box. And as we do that, I'll share a little bit about how the matrix is broken down and also where it came from. So Dwight D. Eisenhower, one of our former presidents, close to 65 years ago, was giving a speech, and he said, I have 2 types of tasks, those that are urgent and those that are important. Those that are urgent are not important, and those that are important are not urgent. Now that caught the attention of a lot of people, including Stephen Covey and a lot of similar researchers in the 90s, and they formed what is now what we call Eisenhower's Matrix. So it looks like we have a lot of no's. So this is a new formula for us, which is great. So what we're going to do now is take a look at how it's broken down and then go ahead and apply it. So what you see on the screen here is our matrix made up of 4 quadrants. I'll start up in the top left, our urgent and important tasks. These are the things that we want to do, okay? These are the highest up on your task list, our priorities. These are, as examples, could be client-based or client-facing tasks or responsibilities. Maybe it's a proposal that's due to a client on Monday. This could be something that has to do with a crisis, so something that some of us are dealing with right now at work. So this might be approving a contingency plan of sorts. Again, what is urgent and important should be done. When we move over to our second quadrant, we have what is important but not urgent. So these tasks have a significant impact on our long-term goal or success, but they're not necessarily associated with a deadline that has imminent consequences. So these tasks are items we want to plan for. Most importantly, we want to pick a date, a time, and a place that we're going to complete these tasks. Examples might be focusing on your own personal development. That's something we often forget to plan, but it is important. Perhaps this is completing a SOAR analysis for your business or for your department. Maybe this is reassessing a business development plan. Things that should be planned with a specific time, place. And then when we go down to our third quadrant, we have what is urgent but not important. Now, in my opinion, this is the trickiest quadrant we have. This is often not dictated by us. You know, as Margaret mentioned, sometimes our boss is dictating what is urgent. Perhaps there are other external factors. But in this case, we want to do our best to delegate our urgent but not important tasks. Now, some of us work with other members of teams where we can delegate tasks such as someone calling asking for a favor. Maybe it's a colleague asking you to step into a meeting last minute. Great, go ahead and delegate those tasks to the best of your ability. But if you're a one-man or one-woman show, this might be a little more challenging. So we can do what I like to call allocating these tasks, right? Allocating them to a time where we know our business slows down a little bit. We know that we are most productive. And we know that the automatic part of our brain can take over a little bit to take care of these tasks. Now, Margaret, I'm just curious, because you are a one-woman show of sorts. Is there anything else you would add to how you go about handling these tasks in this third quadrant?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things I do is something called batching, where you batch like tasks. So for example, email. What research has shown is that if we answer our email as they come in, so we hear that little ping, which my first piece of advice would be to turn that off. But when we answer emails as they come in, we actually lose up to 40% of our productivity. They call it flip-flop costs, because we're flipping in thinking about doing, I'm working on a presentation and then I stop, go answer that email, and I have to like get myself back then into the groove of my presentation. So flip-flop costs, not good. Batch instead. And the more things you can outsource, not to a vendor, but outsource to the automatic side of your brain, the better. And Mia's going to talk more about that when she gets into the last tool around habits.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for that perspective, Margaret. And lastly, we'll look at that fourth quadrant, which is really simple, my friends. There are tasks that are not important and they're not urgent. Those are items that should be deleted, eliminated from our minds and our task lists, such as surfing the internet or social media without purpose. We know these things happen, but we want to eliminate them to the best of our ability so that we can really focus on the other three quadrants and focus on what really matters. And when we let urgence and importance guide our productivity, we're much more likely to be successful. So what I'd love for us to do now is to try it out ourselves. So what I'm going to ask you to do is take out a pen and paper that perhaps you're jotting down notes on, or if you're taking notes on the computer, draw 2 lines perpendicular, and I'll go back to this last slide so that you can see our matrix. And I'm going to ask that you input all tasks that you wish to accomplish next week. Go ahead and jot them down in the matrix, and then we'll give you about a minute to do that. Go ahead and type in the chat box, what do you notice about your matrix?
Mia, while we wait for some of those answers to come in, of course, I did this exercise on Wednesday when you offered this workshop previously. And what I found is that I didn't have as many things in the plan, the upper right-hand corner, as I expected to do. And maybe it's because everything seems urgent and important these days. But I'm going to take another look and see what can go into that plan and be a little bit more intentional.
Yeah, that's great perspective. It looks like Lewis is heavy on the do quadrant, which makes sense. right? It might feel like a time where everything is so urgent and important, and he's also in sales, so that might influence his matrix too. You know, a thought there might be really think about and sit, you know, we have a short amount of time here, but after this session or when you have time, think about, is this urgent and is this important? Does it have an impact on my long-term goal or success or of my business or department? And is there a deadline?
Yeah, it's never a question, are we busy? We're all busy. The question is, what are we working on? And are we truly working on the right stuff?
Right. I'm sure some of you have heard of the 80-20 rule, right? So 20% of our work impacts, you know, our success. So it's really focusing on the small or the smaller percentage that impacts our productivity.
Melissa says the important but not urgent isn't getting done. Yeah, you're right, Melissa. Right now, that's kind of put on hold. However, what happens is when it gets put on hold for so long, the important, not urgent, becomes urgent, right? It suddenly becomes urgent because we haven't planned for it. One of the things I like to ask clients is, what could you do to move this project along by just 1%? Just 1%, something that's been on the back burner. What could you do? And that can be another way to, like what we call, trick ourselves into getting started on something that's important, but not necessarily urgent. KTC, it says, I feel like most of my self-delegated tasks are planned and all of my bosses are delegate. Not a lot of do until things calm down. Yeah, great perspective, KT. And Dorothy, I'm also in the category of important but not urgent. Okay. All right, Mia, I think we'll go on
Awesome.
from here. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your perspectives.
Great. Thank you all. And you know, my hope for you is that you use this matrix as a tool moving forward to help you know what to do, plan, delegate, and eliminate. And we'll also be providing some resources after the session that will help you to do so. Perfect. So let's move on to our next tool. So we're going to go from being the hot mess to cool and decluttered. And I think that's so important to touch on. You know, now we know what the right work is in a sense, but where do we do it? And science tells us we do it in an organized space. Something that Margaret and I always say is that a decluttered space is a decluttered mind. And there is science and truth behind that. So what I'd like to touch on here is some research and writing done by Gretchen Rubin, who's dedicated a lot of her time and energy to studying how organization and clutter impacts our productivity. So this book on the right, Outer Order and Inner Calm, is her most recent, but she has a variety to check out if this topic further interests you. But a few tips that she shares that I want to pass on to you. One is the 1 minute rule. Any chore or task that can be done in 1 minute, we should do. Just do it. I call it eat the frog. So if we have to put the peanut butter jar back in the cabinet, if you need to push your drawers in, if you're anything like me, those are often left out. Do it. Second, eliminate paper where you can. So a lot of us, if we're, you know, we might be working or living in a unique space or environment right now, all being, you know, under some sort of quarantine, we have paper stacked up everywhere, and that can really have a severe impact on the work that we do. So take advantage of electronics. We have computers, right? Scan and upload the items that you don't need hard copies of. And if you really don't need something, go ahead and get rid of it. I like to do a purge every 3 months or so of all of my paper documents to see if it's something I truly need anymore. And lastly, the evening tidy up. And this is something I love to do as well. Take 5 minutes every evening, nothing too ambitious, to take care of a couple things that will really set you up for success and clarity for the next day. So that might be organizing your shoes in the closet or in the mudroom. If you have children or pets, the picture on the left will probably look a lot different, but we want to go ahead and take care of items like that, maybe pushing in all the chairs. And something that I would recommend and I like to do is putting together that matrix. Put together your matrix for the next day or for the next week in that 5 minutes. And then when you arrive to your desk or your workspace the next day, you're all ready and set to go, set up for success. So those are a couple great tools, to help you declutter your space. But okay, we're decluttered. Okay, we know that we have certain priorities that we have to focus on, but how do we go about taking care of them? It's all about habits. And what's interesting is that we have been programmed in society to think that goal setting is good and habits are bad. But science actually tells us that that's not the case. The woman on the left-hand side, that's Wendy Wood. She's a psychologist at the University of Southern California. And she has done a lot of research on positive habits and how they're maintained when circumstances change. And I found this to be really important for our conversation today, as a lot of our circumstances have changed, whether that's physically or mentally. But what she has found is that even when circumstances change, if we maintain the same environment or a similar environment and a similar frequency of our habit, we're more likely to stick to it. So I'll throw a couple examples at you. One, think about, maybe you set a goal for yourself to lose 10 pounds in the next 3 months. Might sound a little daunting, but if you reframe that and try to shape it as a habit, perhaps you say to yourself, I'm going to set the habit of exercising for 30 minutes daily, every workday prior to work. You're much more likely to stick to that habit and ultimately achieve the goal that you would have set. Same thing can be applied to our professional life. Margaret touched on email a little bit earlier. Let's say you have a goal of keeping a clear inbox or responding to all clients every day. If you want a clear inbox every day, I wish you luck, my friends. But if you set a habit of monitoring or processing your email 4 times a day for 10 minutes at strategic time set that makes sense for your business or for your field of work, you're much more likely to go through and have a clear inbox at the end of the day, and most importantly, communicate with the people that are most important to doing what you do. So through that research, we see that setting habits is actually good, right? And can get you to the place, that you want to be and impact your long-term success. So what I'd like to do to wrap up our conversation here today is to go back to the chat box, and I'd like for you to reflect. Based on the tools that we shared today, what is something that you're already doing right? Love if you could share that with us. And secondly, what is one small action that you can take today to be more productive?
Yeah, Mia, that first question, what is something you're already doing right? That is a question from a field of study, positive psychology, and specifically appreciative inquiry, where we're always doing something right. You all wouldn't even be on this webinar today if you weren't already doing something right in your career when it comes to being productive. So really honing in on what are those things that you already do is just as important as identifying those things that you don't do so well. So do include that. And then again, just one small action you can take today to help you be even more productive. So what do we see coming in, Mia?
Oh, good. It looks like from Dorothy, what she's already doing right. She juices 4 to 5 times a week, even though it's a lot of work. Sounds like my sister. That's a great thing. I'm dedicated to health and nutrition. Fantastic. KT, morning routine is down well. And for number 2, she thinks trying to task batching would be helpful as you attack the workday. Definitely. Lisa's already set the habit of daily exercise. Melissa.
Oh, I love Melissa's. I'm good at ignoring, but not important. I love that.
That's a good
That's
thing.
a real skill.
Oh, good. Looks like Mary says after lap down, she's decided to do one type of physical activity every day and has been sticking to that. Great. Marissa's already doing cleanup or 5-minute evening tidy up every day. Kathy is decluttering her space constantly. I know that's right. Great. So some small actions to take. Lisa, declutter papers. Good. Salvador's already listening to you and learning a lot. That's great. I think Salvador wins our award, Margaret, for highest attendance on our sessions with Dose of Positivity, wouldn't you say?
Salvador comes back every week for a dose of positivity. So, and I believe Salvador is one of my students in the Masters of Positive Leadership down in Mexico City. So we love having you, Salvador. Okay. Well, I think we're just about at the bottom of the hour, Mia. So let's just share a couple other things. We'll stay on for Q&A. If people have any other questions, we'll come back to that. But if you do want another free dose of positivity, like Salvador, here's how you can get it, and go ahead and tell your friends and colleagues. And then in terms of connecting with Mia and me, this is how you can connect with us. Don't worry about trying to jot all this down right now. We'll be sending out a recording from today as well as the slide deck. So you'll have all of our contact information and all the slides as well. So thank you, everybody. But we'll go back to the Q&A. We can stay on for a few more minutes if people have any questions or comments.
Oh, you're welcome, Kathy. I'm glad you had a chance to join.
Yeah, Shima, thank you.
Great push. We all need it sometimes, KT.
That was great, very helpful.
Awesome.
Good.
Thank you, Louis.
I love going back up in the chat box. It looks like Betsy wants to work more on planning the quad this week. Use that quad. And as I mentioned, I'll send out a format for the quadrant. So you could even just save it as a file or print out multiple copies and keep it as a packet for your to-do list. It's something I like to do.
And Betsy Nealon says, great way to end the week, and a happy Mother's Day to all of the moms. Oh, Betsy, yes, and a happy Mother's Day to you too. Great.
Positive light at the
And
end
Melissa.
of the week. That's what we strive to be.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Happy Mother's Day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louis.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody. Greetings from Mexico.
Bye, Salvador.
Bye. Thank you very much. Sorry for the delay.
Have a great
De
day.
nada.
Gracias. Bye. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Have
you.
a great
Very
weekend.
welcome.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, Mari. Bye-bye.
Oh, I'm gonna.
Is that Gina?